This is crazy. Greg Abbott being the governor of Texas, is defying the Supreme Court and looking to possibly go to war with the federal government. But the question is, how did we get here? Let's have a little bit of background, okay? Since Biden got into office, there has been a record-breaking influx of migrants that have been encountered at the southern border, all right? A lot of those migrants are apprehended in Texas, since Texas has the largest land border with Mexico out of any state in the entire country, okay? That has Eagles Crossing and Shelby Park, two places directly on the border that is the breaking point for what we're going to be talking about right now, all right? And yes, this is encounter. This is just people that they saw at the border. This isn't including people who are asylum seekers or anything. This is just people that they found at the border. Like Border Patrol finds a person, they write it down. This is the people that they saw crossing the border, that they encountered at the border, crossing the border illegally. All right, that's what we have there. Republicans hate this. They hate the idea of people coming over the border illegally, and a lot of them even hate migrants in general, legal or illegal. And so a lot of Republicans have been spending their time trying to figure out ways of how to stop migrants from coming in. Donald Trump specifically thought about shooting migrants in the legs, or even building a big alligator moat, like we're an evil castle in a RPG or something. Maybe, yeah, just something along those lines. Many other Republicans have had different ideas about how to do it. In Texas and also Florida, they started busing migrants that they found and even flying them out to different states. Martha's Vineyard is one, New York, Chicago, just California in general, just throwing them on buses and just shipping them out. We have an entire video going over that and how immoral, inhuman, and I just think it's human trafficking. And the biggest failure Joe Biden has had domestically is not suing these governors for human trafficking these people by lying to them, by throwing them on buses where they could have medical emergencies and just taking them to random places and dropping them off without any papers, no nothing, right? Outside of that, there has been Arizona's last governor, Doug Ducey, who decided to play Legos on the border and decided to get shipping containers and then set them up across the border as well, even though this was illegal and also stops the migration of several animals from coming across to and from the border, that leads to an ecological disaster that needed to be stopped. And then they lost this court case, and then that got taken down, especially since Doug Ducey was term limited. He was no longer the governor of Arizona anymore, and now there's a much better, cooler governor there who's also woman-pilled, which is also kind of wacky, incredibly insane, isn't it? In Texas, they've had different ideas. Texas specifically originally made this new saw trap device contraption. And what you're looking at, you may think that these are just buoys, but you're wrong. These are buoys specifically tailored to drown people. These buoys spin independently, so you can't climb on top of them. And they also have razor blades inside of them where you can get caught in between them, where you can get caught and then you're not able to climb out of the water, and then you can easily drown when they were placed. This is a health hazard and an absolute disaster. They're murderous contraptions specifically made to kill people, because conservatives believe that if you cross the border, you should be killed. Just period. That's where they're beginning. You deserve to be dead if you want to come into America in ways they disapprove of. Let's just understand that right here. And this is at Eagles Pass. Eagles Pass is one of the biggest destinations for people crossing the border illegally in the entire country, and that is in Texas. Shelby Park is right next to it. But during a court case, Texas lost their court battle in keeping these up, and so they were forced to take them down. And so instead of just like thinking, I wonder different ways we can keep people from crossing the border illegally or process them in better ways and so we won't have to kill them. Instead of that, they decided to go in a downgrading form and just pick up razor wire instead. And so now they've just started placing razor wire across the border, and it looks like this. Okay. With that being said, there's a problem. Now, the problem comes from the fact that where they place their razor wire, they place razor wire on the border in one of the most trafficked illegal crossings in the entire country. After that, people then have medical emergencies on US soil because these aren't placed directly on the border because Texas doesn't have the ability to place things directly on the border just like that. They're placed on American soil, Texas soil, a little further away from the border. So once you're on American soil, you are now under the jurisdiction of the Constitution, okay? Which means that if you're dying or you need medical assistance, that you need to be treated, and that if like a Border Patrol agent or somebody sees you in danger, they need to help you, okay? Keep that in mind because that's a big thing with this, all right? Texas got mad at the Biden administration for cutting the razor wire when they need to get people through the border to process them once they're on American soil. Because they've already crossed the border illegally. You now need to be able to process them after they've come over the border, maybe file like suits or something, get them an attorney. They need to process them. So they cut the razor wire to be able to bring them through so they can like apprehend them, okay? Texas got angry at the Biden administration for doing that, and so they sued Biden and the Border Patrol for cutting their razor wire because they said the razor wire costs a lot of money and the Border Patrol is destroying it, and they're destroying like state property, and they need to stop, okay? A lower court ruled, a super crazy right-wing lower court ruled in Texas's favor, saying that the federal government couldn't cut the razor wire. The Biden administration then appealed to the Supreme Court, and for some reason, tightly divided Supreme Court. It was a 5-4 ruling in Biden's favor, saying that as the proceedings go along, the Border Patrol is able to access this area and also cut the razor wire, which is just insane to me because if you think about it, it's the federal government going on federal property. The border is federal property. The federal government controls the border. Texas does not control the border. Okay? That's not how that works. Just because it's a border state does not mean that it gets control over the border. That's what Greg Abbott wants to do, is control the border himself. Take the job from the federal government, from the president, and put it in his own hands and control like 1/3 of the entirety of the US border with Mexico. That's what his plan is. That's what he wants to do. Biden said, you can't do that because that's literally my job, stated in the Constitution. And the Supreme Court justices, literally 4 of them, were like, the Texas gets to override the federal government when it comes to its job of securing the border of the country. It, like, think about how crazy that is. Real. Like just state-run organizations now have authority over the federal government to be able to do what they want, where the federal government is not able to challenge them. Can you imagine that? Can you even imagine like a law where California, like the federal government says that in every single state you have to have like gun rights, okay? Can you imagine if California revoked the Second Amendment and they said we don't have to enforce it because we're the ones enforcing the gun laws, and so like the federal government has no rhyme or reason over that. This should prove to you that this Supreme Court is full of insane, dogmatic, rhetoric-filled, conservative extremist hacks, dude. All right, we already know that Clarence Thomas is a guy who literally doesn't care about the law. It only rules in things that he finds favorable and things that he doesn't find favorable, and just barely even makes an attempt to be able to justify his rulings. He's just completely out of it. But the other conservative, because every single judge that dissented was a conservative Supreme Court justice. All the other justices just came out to be like, oh yeah, the federal government in things that we don't like personally, right? It's very clear in the Constitution that the federal government gets to control the border. That's not debatable. But apparently to these conservatives, it is. And we all know that it's like hackery because, be honest with me, do you genuinely believe that in any other left-wing cause or something that the Supreme Court, that these justices would rule in the left's favor? Do you genuinely believe that? Do you genuinely believe that if it's just undeniable that the federal government does something and the supremacy clause of the United States is like just clear cut, that it's not the other way? Do you believe genuinely that if federally, completely, that like the marijuana was illegal, okay, federally, and every single state it's illegal to like own, traffic, smoke marijuana. Do you genuinely believe that in like New York, the Supreme Court, like New York sued the government saying that they should be allowed to smoke as much weed as they want because the federal government can't tell them what to do? Do you genuinely believe that? No, of course not. Of course, you're crazy. They'd laugh in your face. Of course not. If they banned abortion nationally, do you genuinely believe that the Supreme Court? Do you genuinely believe that the Supreme Court would be like, oh, you can have as many abortions as you want because the states can do whatever they want? No, of course not. This is the precedent that this sets is genuinely insane that they were going to let this go through and let the Texas keep usurping the federal government as this court case goes through. Genuinely crazy stuff from them. But that's where we were, sparking this problem at the border, because the problem at the border going on right now is hundreds of years, honestly, in the making when it comes to how we run our borders, especially the southern border with Mexico, is in the problems in that. How this started recently, sorry for punching my mic, was that while Texas was putting up the razor wire, they were putting razor wire in the water as well. It snagged a family, a woman and 2 children in the Rio Grande, and those people, all of them died. Okay? All of them died. Now, Federal Border Patrol wasn't there to be able to save these people because this is exactly the reason why they cut the razor wire. They don't just like walk around and have fun cutting razor wire. They don't touch the razor wire unless there's somebody they need to get on the other side of the razor wire on American soil. But what happened is that now Greg Abbott in Texas are refusing to allow Federal Border Patrol into one of the largest illegal migrant crossings in the country because Abbott is mad after losing the court case against Biden for putting up the razor buoys. Okay? That's what's going on here. The Federal Border Patrol was like, what the f***? Let me in. We're literally the feds. You listen to me. And Greg Abbott told the Texas border agency not to let them into Shelby Park, which is a large park that's directly on the border that leads to the Rio Grande and Eagles Pass. Okay? This is where our largest migrant crossing in the entire country. With that, it's a major tantrum from an actually grown man. Okay? That's what's going on right now. 3 people died. 1 woman and her 2 children were drowned to death by Greg Abbott, and they weren't allowed to be saved by Federal Border Patrol. And Texas Border Patrol just let them drown. Okay, it didn't care about saving them; just let them drown. All right. With this being said, Joe Biden said, yo, you need to let me and Federal Border Patrol into the area. We control the border. Okay, not you. Know your place, fool. Greg Abbott then said, nah, I control the border because I think you, Mr. Biden, you stink. Mr. Biden, you fucking stink. Fuck you. I hate you. I'm angry. You suck. You're not Donald Trump. I want Donald Trump. He should be in office, not you. F you, Biden. You don't get to see the border. And claimed that Texas is invoking its right to self-defense. They're going to then Israel all of the migrants, okay? They're going to Israel all of the migrants. They want all the migrants to die at the border because they believe that in a right to self-defense, and they think that they're being invaded and destroyed at the border, and Texas needs to do something, and Joe Biden isn't doing anything, okay? Even though Joe Biden has, if you didn't know this, Joe Biden has actually passed more border policy through executive order than Donald Trump has. Joe Biden has built more border wall than Donald Trump has. Joe Biden is turning away Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans. All of those people, if they smell Haiti on you, if they smell Nicaragua on you, if they smell Cuba on you, you get turned away at the border. No questions asked. Just you stay out of the country. Okay, just those people are then effectively, we've banned migrants from Haiti, Nicaragua, and Cuba at the border at the moment as well. Joe Biden is doing a lot of things that conservatives like. He's just not just straight up killing people on the border, which is what these people would probably want. Okay, because they believe that crossing into the country is a death penalty that is worth the death penalty. You deserve to be killed. People like Charlie Kirk came out to say that we should start rounding up Patriot supporters and just gunning down people on the border. right? Even Donald Trump said that we should start shooting migrants on the border and letting them bleed out on American soil for trying to seek asylum. In some cases, just they believe that you should die if you cross into the country illegally or you want to seek asylum in the country is worth the death penalty. These people want to kill people. Okay. They just want to kill. That's their main goal. So if you wonder why they're acting the way they do, it's because they believe you should die if you cross the border. You've given up your right to life, and it's upon them to take it from you like they're the angel of death. Okay, you did not put lamb's blood above your door, so they should kill you. The right to self-defense. Yeah, they should be able to defend themselves from Jose, 32, barefoot at the border. So dangerous, so spooky and dangerous. Okay. With this being said, like I said, Joe Biden was then sued Texas and Greg Abbott for not allowing federal border patrol into Eagles Pass, into Shelby Park, to save those people who drowned and not allowing them to cut the razor wire. All right. Joe Biden appealed the loss in the lower court to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court gave Biden the win, said two things, okay? Because you're going to see conservatives lie to you. Surprise, surprise, conservatives are going to lie to you about this, all right? They're going to say one of these things. They're going to say Texas didn't lose the court case, okay? Even though a lot of them were like just a couple days ago were saying that the Supreme Court gave Joe Biden the green light to invade America, okay? What this decision said was that not only is federal border patrol allowed to cut that razor wire, stopping them from being able to reach the border, they also are allowed to have access to the entire border, Shelby Park and Eagles Pass included. So those are two things. Keep that in mind because we're going to bring them back. Okay? Keep that in mind. Biden wins this. Texas loses. Greg Abbott gets angry. And he gets so angry, in fact, that he decides to say, this is not over. Like he's a supervillain. Okay? Like he's planning something devious and disgusting. Okay? He's planning something evil. Texas says after Supreme Court lets Biden admin remove razor wire at U.S.-Mexico border. All right? And everybody was like, what does he mean by this is not over? What's his planning? What is he planning to do? And it seems like what he's planning to do was double down, declare an invasion on the border, and then defy the Supreme Court and not allow federal border patrol to cut the razor wire. Okay, so listen to this. Remember how I told you to remember something? I hope you did, because now it's going to be important. We're going to have a test on this. Okay, you're going to hear conservatives tell you that Texas isn't defying the Supreme Court because all the decision was that they just said you should be able to cut the razor wire. But Texas isn't allowing federal border patrol into Shelby Park, the area where they're putting up the razor wire. So they're like, well, we're able to put up more razor wire because, I mean, the Biden administration hasn't been able to cut it yet. That's the workaround that they're trying to do here, okay? And some left-wingers even believe this. Don't believe the conservative lies. The ruling said two things. One, Border Patrol is allowed to cut the razor wire. And two, the Border Patrol is allowed to have access to the entire border. So, with this being said, when Texas disallows federal Border Patrol into Shelby Park, they are defying the Supreme Court. They said specifically you should allow them to be able to reach the razor wire and the border. Okay? Texas said no. Joe Biden asked again. Texas said no again. And then they came out with this.
We have a right when the federal government, we believe under the Constitution, we believe it's our right to protect our people. Pure and simple. And to protect our country, the federal government is not doing it. That was part of Article 4, Section 4. When the United States was founded by the states, we created the government. They had a deal to protect us against invasion. Now, Joe Biden wants to argue what invasion is. 8 million people who have come into this country illegally, murderers, molesters, terrorists, rapists, gang members, drug dealers, carjackers, kidnappers. That's invaded.
Movers, shakers, boppers, everyone, dude. Everyone's coming across the border. And once again, if you're a criminal, you get turned away at the border. If they catch you committing crimes, you go back across. They send you back, you know? Those three groups that I said, Nicaraguans, Haitians, and Cubans, are some of the largest groups of people coming across the border right now, that are specifically just getting turned away. Biden is doing a lot at the border. Biden is more hawkish on the border. I want you to know something here. It's crazy. Biden once again has instituted more restrictions on the border than Donald Trump has. He is more hawkish on the border than Donald Trump was in the first 4 years. In Biden's 3 years, he's done more against migrants on the border than Donald Trump has. Barring some of the concentration camps we put migrants in. Some of those are slightly better. Like, they're not forcing people who are Muslim to eat pork. I don't believe anymore. And I believe the uterus snatcher, that guy got fired, if I remember correctly. And I think some children were found, and some people who committed assault in the sexual variety were also let go. But outside of that, he's as if not way more hawkish on migrants than Trump has. Okay. But nobody thinks of it like that because we've had such a large amount of people coming to the border. They don't even think, they just think if you show up at the border, it must be the president's fault. And that's just kind of it. Even though here's two things. Let me leave you with two pieces. If you learn anything from this video, let me give you these two pieces of knowledge, okay? One of the big reasons why I don't necessarily care that much about the border is because it's not that big of a problem when it comes to specifically crime. Migrants commit less crime than native-born people in this country. Migrants also aren't bringing that much fentanyl into the country. Did you know that 90% of the fentanyl apprehensions at the border are from U.S. citizens crossing in from Mexico who carry fentanyl? Do you know it's not people illegally crossing over the border like that with like a turtle shell full of fentanyl? They look like the pilgrims from Dark Souls. They're just like they got a stick and they're crossing the Rio Grande with like a massive pack of fentanyl on their back or something. Did you know that? It's not some guy named Juarez balancing 500 crates of fentanyl on his head as he like skimmies across the border. Did you know that? That's not actually how most fentanyl gets into the country. That's not how most fentanyl that does get into the country because most of the fentanyl is made here, okay? And the fentanyl that does come over the border, most of it is from U.S. citizens who paid someone who was another U.S. citizen to cross the border legally with fentanyl. Now, you may be wondering, Shark, that's crazy. Why in the world would they have somebody who's a U.S. citizen cross into the border with fentanyl like that? Well, if you think about it, who goes through more scrutiny at the border? Some random guy named Jose who can't speak English, who's coming in on his like dirty white Toyota truck, okay? And then they're like, "Damn, you smell Mexican. Get out of the car, boy." You know, do you think that guy gets checked less? Or do you think that some guy named Kyle who has an ID from Virginia, who's coming in after just having a little vacation in Mexico in his like a Honda Civic, okay? That guy gets checked less. There is way less scrutiny on people who are American citizens coming over the border, so that's why they have Americans smuggle drugs into America for other Americans that paid for it. That's how most fentanyl gets into the country. And so if that's the case, we should start shooting legal migrants who are legal citizens who are crossing back into the country. And then more likely than not, you'll stop more fentanyl from coming into the country. But that's not what conservatives care about, because even in that the case, fentanyl's coming into the country through legal ports of entry. So are migrants. Most migrants who come into the country illegally are coming in through legal ports. And most of the people who are in the country illegally come in after actually getting into the country illegally with like a green card or a work visa or on a vacation, and then just stay in the country and never leave. That's how most people are in the country illegally. This just doesn't make any sense. My border crossings are not a real problem. That's why it's a made up crisis. That's why it's an invented crisis. That's why we say it's a manufactured crisis, because the way in which we handle people at the border, the way in which we deal with people at the border is specifically made difficult because it's good for Republicans to run on it. It's not a real problem in the sense of it's destroying the country. It's a real problem as in we're creating a humanitarian crisis by allowing people to die in the river after being snagged in razor wire because it gives us votes by making us think that we're hard on the border when we're just hard on human lives. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. But they don't want to tell you that. They don't want to tell you that. And they don't want to tell you that Texas is very clearly violating the Supreme Court. But that doesn't matter to them because right after Texas said that not only am I defying the Supreme Court and not allowing federal border patrol to reach the border, but we're also going to be sending the National Guard in to be able to defend the border from Border Patrol asking to get into Shelby Park. Literally guys with like wire cutters. They're just like guys in green suits with wire cutters. That's the people who Texas is like racing to defend themselves against. Like a guy in a green hat with a single razor wire with a single wire cutter in his pocket. That's the biggest threat to America right now, just so you know. After this, every single Republican governor in the entire country, barring Vermont's Republican governor, then signed a letter supporting Texas's border fight, saying that they agree with Texas in their fight against the Supreme Court and Joe Biden, saying that Texas has the right to defend itself against the Supreme Court and Joe Biden and some little kid from El Salvador. Okay, that's what's happening now. State Guard or National Guard? They're sending. They're Texas's National Guard. So the Texas State's National Guard, State Guard. Are they called National Guard? Nope. It is 100% called National Guard. A state's State Guard are called National Guards. Yes, it is a National Guard. There's a National Guard, but Abbott is using State Guard. No, Abbott's using their National Guard. Abbott is using Texas's National Guard. Everything I've seen is saying that they're using their National Guard. Why are they so afraid of Luigi and his wire cutters? They think they're destroying the nation, apparently. Texas Guard. Oh, well, sure, we'll call them State Guard. Sure. Texas State's National Guard. They're the military troops, Texas military troops assigned to Texas that they use specifically to be able to deal with crises that overwhelm police officers. Okay, they're State Guard. We'll just say State Guard. Just to be sure. Fine, they're State Guard. I don't really care that much. Okay, Texas then deployed their State Guard. After that, Donald Trump chimes in to make the border crisis even more of a crisis by then going on to Truth Social and telling every single Republican governor to then send their national, like their Texas, their National Guard, their military troops assigned to their state to go then work with Texas, go under Greg Abbott's control, and then build up a little mini army to be able to attack Border Patrol coming in with their razor wires. All right. That's what then they did. And you know what happened after Trump called for them to do it? They did it. As soon as he said it, they said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Trump, sir." And they all sent their National Guard. Almost all of them sent their National Guard. Many of them started to send their troops down to Texas to be able to go under Greg Abbott's control to fight Joe Biden and his razor wires. In his razor wire cutters. Aren't you glad for Bashir? I'm pretty happy to have Bashir. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very excited to have Bashir. Much better than anything else that could have happened to me. I will say. They want to kill kids that much? Yes, and just so you remember, all of this started because Joe Biden wanted to save a woman and 2 children from drowning to death in the Rio Grande. Texas is specifically against saving people that go to the Rio Grande, because when you tell them that we need to help stop people dying at the border, what you'll get is people saying that they shouldn't have crossed anyway. And what that means, their mouth is saying that they shouldn't have crossed anyways. What they mean is that they deserve to die. that if you cross the border, you are deserving of the death penalty because crossing the border should be punishable by death. You should simply just be killed if they see you even attempting to cross the border. That's what these people believe. All right. And it's sick. It really is sick and gross. It is incredibly sick, and it needs to not happen. It's not that big of a crime. Crossing into the border is like jaywalking. It's like a misdemeanor crime. But to these people, it's the worst thing that you could possibly do because you're destroying the nation or something. And there's too many taco trucks around. There's too many people causing too many issues. And then some people will go, well, look at Texas and Chicago and California and in New York and all these places that are like, well, that are like now overwhelmed. Well, you're sending a bunch of people there to specifically overwhelm their system. The point is to cause more trouble than there is. Texas could have worked with the federal government to be able to have more resources to deal with migrants coming across the border, and then worked with the federal government to be able to process people at the federal border to stop this from being as big of a problem in Texas as it could have been. But Greg Abbott decides he just wants to kill people, and Biden thinks that you should probably not let them die. And that's the struggle that we're having here. It's not about defending the border or not defending the border, or the border being open and being closed. What in the world would close the border? What is it? It would not stop most of the migrants coming to the country illegally from coming into the country. Like, these people are saying, like, here's the thing, okay? People like Ted Cruz came up with a really fiery speech the other day. Let me pull this up for you, okay? Let me tell you what Ted Cruz had to say. Here's the man. Here's the Zodiac killer himself.
The Biden border crisis is an absolute humanitarian disaster, and Democrats don't care. Last year, 853 migrants died crossing illegally into this country. Alejandro Mayorkas didn't even know how many had died because he didn't care. When I brought 19 senators down to the border, we saw a man who had drowned floating in the Rio Grande. Democrats don't care. Last year, thousands upon thousands of children were brutalized and sexually assaulted by human traffickers, and Democrats don't care. Last year, thousands of women were sexually assaulted by human traffickers, and Democrats do not give a damn. Last year, more than 100,000 Americans died of drug overdoses from Chinese fentanyl flooding across the southern border, and Democrats do not give a damn. Now, you may say, oh, come on, that's harsh. They care. They care. Somewhere in their hearts, they care about all the people suffering and dying. Baloney.
Well, he says that Democrats surely don't care about what's happening. But it seems like, to me, but Ted Cruz doesn't really care because he listened to Donald Trump when he told them to sink this border bill. So if you didn't know, ever since October, Democrats and Republicans have been working together in the Senate to be able to forge a bill that would do a couple things. Give Israel more money to kill children in Gaza, give Ukraine more money to defend itself against Russia, and tighten up the border. And then add more draconian, more harsh laws on the border to make it more difficult for people to seek asylum, basically. And Mitch McConnell said this. Mitch McConnell, when he saw the bill, his eyes literally lit up. He specifically said that it wouldn't even be possible to get a better bill on the border under Donald Trump. That's how many concessions that Joe Biden gave to the Republicans on this bill. There was no pathway to citizenship for people on the bill. None. Okay. It would have made fewer people be able to seek asylum at the border. So turn away poor people struggling, being hunted by like cartels or something. Just let them die. Okay. And not allow them to seek asylum at all. That's what was going on as well. That's what was in the bill. Okay. But Donald Trump specifically said, you sink this bill if it's not perfect. And specifically, he didn't want a bill to go through so he can use the border crisis as a talking point against Joe Biden. And so the bill right now, as we know it, is probably dead. All right. And I'm not going to lie. I can't say I'm a little happy about it, that Republican hypocrisy and Republican capture by Donald Trump has led to a really bad border bill dying in the Senate. Okay, but it seems like it has. House Republicans that are way more closely aligned to Donald Trump than a lot of the senators are, specifically said that the bill is dead on arrival. Ted Cruz said as well that this bill is dead on arrival. Okay. He said he will not vote for it as well. So who does really care about the border? I don't know, but it's apparently not these guys. It's not those guys either. It's really strange stuff, isn't it? It's really strange stuff. So with this being said, with a constitutional crisis, with Republicans and Texas specifically defying the Supreme Court, one of the second times in American, like the second time in American history, I believe, where people have just outright just said F you to the Supreme Court, okay? And to be able to do whatever they want. And every single time it happens, it's to kill more brown people. It's Jackson doing the Trail of Tears to kill Native Americans, and now it's Greg Abbott and the Republicans defying the Supreme Court to kill migrants at the border. That is the point of what's going on now. All right. So with that being said, where do we go from here? Joe Biden, the day that this was going on, was busy talking about how much he loves a bridge that got built recently. Actually, while this was going down, while all of this was happening, this is what Joe Biden was doing. Okay, let me show you. This is Joe Biden yesterday after like 20 governors sent their National Guard to try to kill Border Patrol who tried to cut razor wire. This is what Biden was up to.
The beer brewed here, it is used to make the brew beer in this refinery. Oh, Earth Rider, thanks for the Great Lakes. Anyways,
incredible stuff going on here. Incredible stuff, I must say. Incredible stuff. Where's Lincoln where we need them, right? Maybe they're trying to spark a civil war, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't really believe this is going to go anywhere. What do I mean by that? I really think that if push comes to shove, these guys are going to back down. I think if Joe Biden is like, you have until tomorrow. Actually, he said you have until the end of Friday to be able to let Border Patrol into Shelby Park. Right? If he just says that at the end of the day, I think they're all just going to back down and then start crying about how mean Joe Biden is to states and their rights. Right? It's Friday. Yes, it is. They have until the end of Friday, he said. Okay? Because here's the thing. You may be thinking, oh man, this is so crazy. This is so scary. Well, at the end of the day, all they're doing is like just playing with toys. Okay? They're like having action figures and they're like, I hate you, Biden. And this beer is so good. The Great Lakes. And you, Biden. Right? That's basically what they're doing right now. There's no real bite to what's going on. Because here's the thing. Remember one of the many names for the president of the United States? It is Commander-in-Chief. Every single soldier in America is directly controlled by the Constitution and directed by the executive, meaning Joe Biden. So if Joe Biden wants, he could just say, hey, you National Guard, you report to me now. Let me into the park. And that would just be that. That would just simply just be that. You belong to me now. Now move from the park. And more likely than not, just about everybody would move from the park. And that would be the end of the story. Okay? Joe Biden hasn't done it yet, but many Democrats, and me included, I believe so. Okay? There are many ways that people believe that Joe Biden should deal with this issue. Last night, I even made a poll about it just to see how people were feeling. How do you believe Biden should respond to Texas not obeying the Supreme Court? There were two options: negotiations and strike Abbott's office. And it seemed like a lot of people have a bunch of different opinions about how to deal with this issue. So I personally believe that there are many ways how this can end, but as like a fighting civil war type thing, I don't believe is really one of those options. And Joe Biden can absolutely take control of the National Guard and just be like, you belong to me now. And that's just kind of the end of the story. Republicans are now betting on the idea that the National Guard now will be aligned with Texas and drowning children at the border over listening to Joe Biden and the Constitution. And so that's why they believe that they're going to be able to win with this one. I'm not lying. That's actually why they think they're going to win this one. I don't believe it's going to end up like that. I highly doubt they even really believe that it's going to end up like that. But that's where we are right now, with them telling themselves that they can totally win this issue by simply just waiting long enough for Joe Biden to give up or something. It's possible that Joe Biden could even go, whatever. I could really see him being like, whatever, and then just like pretending it didn't happen. I'm going to be honest with you. I can see him doing that. Okay. So it's either that, or he nationalizes the guard and just tells them to move and then proceeds to cut the razor wire. But it's not going to end up with any shooting or anything. These people are they're too weak. They're children. And this is too little. This is too much of a non-issue, of a nothing burger for this to come to blows. All right. And yes, some people may be like, conservatives do love their delusions and they could start shooting people over their delusions. It's true, but these are military members. This is National Guard, not some whack job named Eric, who spends half of his paychecks on Trump designed merch to be able to show everyone how much he would love to gargle his forceps or something. That's what we're dealing with right now. It's all LARP. It's all LARP. At the end of the day, it is incredibly disgusting. And I believe that, if I'm going to be honest with you, Greg Abbott and all the rest of these governors should be taken to court. Joe Biden should be working with the DOA, with the DOJ, to be able to sue all of these governors and take them to court. Okay. It is completely insane to me to believe that they should be allowed to get away with defying the Supreme Court like this, even if it's something as simple as cutting razor wire, because at the end of the day, that led to 3 people dying. That's not okay. They think it's okay, but it's not okay. And it shouldn't be allowed to continue. It needed to stop. It needed to stop a long time ago. And if that means Greg Abbott may not have an office sometime soon, well, they have my fucking blessing. That's all I'm saying. Rolls Abram tank up to border. You have 10 seconds to disperse. It's possible. It's possible he could do that. I don't think he wants to harm anybody. I think it'd just be a bad look to harm anybody. I think he could use finesse to be able to just be like, shut up, and then just take control of the situation. That'd probably be easier, honestly, and more up Biden's alley to do something close to nothing, in my opinion. Abbott needs to be taken to The Hague. That's true. Where's South Africa where you need him? So that's what's going on right now. A bunch of conservatives are calling for like a civil war, a new confederacy, something along those lines. No, it's not going to happen. Conservatives are all talk and no bite when it comes to this issue. It's a great political stunt to be able to make your people feel like you're fighting for them and you'll do anything it takes to be able to stop the invasion at the border, when in all actuality, it's a great photo op and news headline to make you feel, to make you get social culture war points from your low info voters. So that's basically what's going on here, and that's it. So Texas defying the Supreme Court. Joe Biden hasn't done too much about it besides send some letters, but we'll see what happens tomorrow as of this recording. And that's where we are. Weird stuff, terrible stuff. All the Republicans need to be in jail. Yeah, wild. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button. If you don't, it'll make Boo very sad. I know a bunch of you who are watching are not subscribed. Join the frenzy. You won't regret it. Thank you, Boo.